Good evening, students. My name is Jake.
I'm George.
And I'm Abir. We're here to talk about anti-reductionism in the Romantic era.
In this video, we will be exploring the topic of reductionism in science, which is the idea of reducing or dividing up complex ideas and areas of study into their most fundamental parts in order to more easily and completely understand them. For example, one could say that the subjects of biology and chemistry are reductions of physics, and the subject of molecular biology is a reduction of chemistry and biology. The idea that everything in nature can be understood through breaking down complex subjects and looking at individual parts is closely tied with the idea of reductionism. John Keats's poem Lamia offers an early anti-reductionist argument that has influenced current viewpoints on the subject. Lamia is about a Greek monster, a serpent turned human by the god Hermes. Lamia seeks out a mortal man and attempts to deceive him into marrying her. One of the main themes in the poem is that nature loses its beauty and value when reduced into its basic components for the purpose of scientific study.
Anti-reductionism is frequently cited as a romantic philosophy. In other words, it was developed alongside naturalism, counter-enlightenment, and the sublime. Most romantic works originate in the early to mid-19th century, but it is important to note that not all philosophies from this time are romantic. For example, John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism, which is most definitely a reductionist philosophy. Mill was one of the few British philosophers who was not woven into London's tight social, scientific writer-philosopher network. This was partly due to his classically Enlightenment ideas, which clashed with the popular opinion of London's social sphere, and that he primarily lived in Westminster, England, not London. Back in the Romantic realm, Humphrey Davy was lecturing about chemical philosophy to houses and halls filled with social elites, while simultaneously pumping them full of laughing gas for science. Humphrey Davies provides many quotes on the benefit of anti-reductionist thinking, saying in his Elements of Chemical Philosophy, while it, chemistry, is connected with the grand operations of nature, it is likewise subservient to the common process as well as to the most refined arts of life. As frequently as Davies mentions anti-reductionism, he also mentions studying undecompounded elements for their inherent properties and powers, implying he doesn't always follow his own philosophies. Nonetheless, his preaching of anti-reductionism fell well upon the ears of other London naturalists and romanticists. John Keats, a member of this social sphere, met the Shelleys, Percy and Mary, through their mutual friend Leigh Hunt. Shortly after the first edition of Frankenstein and other monster works rose to popularity, Keats created a remix of the Greek Lamia myth. In this recreation, the monster typically portrayed as a child-eating snake with one eye and one tooth is given much more ambiguous morals and character emotions, as well as her own character arc. After natural beauty is bestowed upon Lamia by the god Hermes, on the day of her wedding, the reductionist philosopher from her past unearths her reality and monstrosity. This succeeds the quote, "In the dull catalogue of common things, philosophy will clip an angel's wings. Conquer all mysteries by rule and line, empty the haunted air and gnomed mind. Unweave a rainbow, as it erewhile made, the tender personed Lamia melt into shade," foretelling the philosopher's undoing of Lamia's beauty in disguise. This clearly belittles the reduction of natural properties into their axiomatic components. Davies and Keats echo the anti-reductionist philosophies of the Romantic era.
The topic of anti-reductionism that was brought up by the Lamia myth and other works of the time continues to this day to have an impact on science. Looking at systems as a whole is an important problem-solving technique that scientists often use to make their hypotheses. This allows scientists to save time by allowing them to apply their previous knowledge of systems where the end result is the same. Anti-reductionism is useful to scientists and researchers in cases where they do not or cannot know all the basic parts that make up a complex system. In these cases where it is impossible to use reductionism, it becomes required to use anti-reductionism techniques to find a solution. In several areas of hard science, such as chemistry and physics, the key step in solving any problem is to apply reductionism and break events down into their individual components. However, as systems become more complex, anti-reductionism becomes more valuable to allow a greater understanding of the system. In a couple of other areas of science, such as ecology, anti-reductionism is used heavily to simplify complex systems and to allow scientists and researchers to understand the basics of the system. Anti-reductionism plays a large role in modern-day science as it is commonly used to simplify large systems and it allows people to have a greater understanding of the end result of the system. The use of this is also important in science, in cases where the only thing that matters is the end result. Anti-reductionism is very relevant today, but not for the reasons described by Davies and Keats. While they believe that reductionism destroyed the inherent beauty in nature, contemporary scientists use anti-reductionism in order to gain more knowledge and to further science in situations where reductionist methods are unfruitful.